There is one and only one reason the Ritvik system of initiations is not bona fide. It has no sanction in Shastra. So today with us is Sriman Basu Ghosh Prabhu, who is an actual disciple of Srila Prabhupada, the General Secretary of the ISKCON India Bureau, and also the ISKCON India Scholars Board resident expert on Sadachar, Vedic history and culture. And we also have with us Vidwan Gauranga Prabhu, who is currently translating the Valmiki Ramayana and also giving a commentary in light of Srila Prabhupada's teachings. And then there is Sridhar Srinivas Prabhu. He is a resident expert on Pancharatrika Vedic and Sri Vaishnava culture, and Rama Prameya Prabhu, who is working on his master's degree in Vedic philosophy and Sanskrit grammar, and is also our expert for the teachings of Madhya. So with all these wonderful devotees today, they're going to explain what is this principle of the necessity of the sanction of Shastra. If it has the sanction of Shastra, then it is bona fide. If it is not sanctioned in Shastra, it is not bona fide, and they're going to explain that to us. So, Basu Ghosh Prabhu, I'd like to start with you. Could you just kind of like explain the importance of this concept, sanction of Shastra?
Right. Srila Prabhupada wrote in his commentary to Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 20, text number 352, that Shastra is the center of all. He also many times taught that Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu have to be consulted to get a proper understanding of the philosophy that we are teaching and preaching. In that same purport, Prabhupada actually wrote that if a saintly person does not teach from the Shastras, he's not a saintly person. And if a guru does not teach what is in Shastras, he's not a guru. So the example that I wish to present, if I have a few moments, is an institution in India that says the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, which is commonly accepted by all the great Acharyas, Adi Shankara, Madhva, Ramanuja, Vishnu Swami, Nimbarkacharya, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is that Gita is spoken by, it's a conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastra Sri Krishna Arjuna Sambade, in the discussion between Krishna and Arjuna. So there's an institution in India that says, no, Gita was not spoken by Krishna, it was spoken by Shiva, but not the Lord Shiva from Kailas, but a formless egg-shaped Shiva. So formless and egg-shape itself is a contradiction, because if something is formless, it doesn't have an egg shape, can't have an egg shape. So this kind of thing is going on. As one Madhva scholar told me many years ago, that this Ritvik system of initiation idea is a manasika nirmita vidhi, a mental concoction, something made up in the mind. It has no basis in Vedic Shastras. Hare Krishna. I'll end my comments for the moment here.
This is a good point that it's the big difference between what is speculative and what is not speculative. And in this regard, perhaps Vidwan Gauranga Prabhu, you can talk about the need for our sources of knowledge on this particular topic to be from a source that is apurushaya.
We are supposed to follow Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Prabhupada in one place he quotes, Sadhu, Shastra, Guru Vakya, Tine The Korya Aikya. We accept three authorities. And he says just like a railway, like a train travels on the railway track, there are two. So there are three actually. Guru category, Guru Vakya category, Shastra Vakya, Sadhu Vakya category, and Shastra Vakya category. In this context, Sadhu Vakya category refers to the predecessor liberated Acharyas. If you take Prabhupada's words as falling into the Guru Vakya category, then what it implies is you also have to understand the same topic on the basis of Prabhupada's predecessor Acharya's teachings and Shastra. Shastra is always the Mula, it is the original authority. But you have to understand the predecessor Acharyas who demonstrate how to apply it. And then it comes in, there is something called the Parampara system that Prabhupada writes about, where if you have a parampara of liberated authorities, you understand the earlier liberated Acharya through the later liberated Acharya. Now the Ritvikists, they sometimes express that the moment you bring in previous Acharyas and Shastra, you're compromising your allegiance to Prabhupada, your loyalty to Prabhupada. They think, no, why are you diffusing? Vivasayatmika buddhi rekeha. Only Prabhupada. Why bring in all these previous? Then it becomes a mess like India, like Hinduism. But that is a mess because they are not following the Parampara system. The liberated predecessor Acharyas, Prabhupada himself is an empowered Nitya Siddha from Goloka Vrindavan. So he's necessarily a transparent via media. I myself, right now, while talking, I have the specs. Is this an impediment for me or is it an enhancement for me? So through the transparent via media of the Paramahamsa Parampara and through Prabhupada, we understand. Now, you may then say, no, but you cannot jump over. You cannot jump over Prabhupada. Prabhupada said that you cannot jump over. But the same Prabhupada has also said, there are plenty of quotations. We can share it in the description or elsewhere, that Prabhupada specifically says that we must read the predecessor Acharya's books. In particular purports, he says, consult this commentary, consult that commentary, like 1.1.1 purport. Prabhupada specifically says, the senior student of Bhagavatam should consult the commentaries of the predecessor Acharyas on Srimad Bhagavatam. There's an instruction, we cannot disobey that. Similarly, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, for particular places, he says, for this you should consult the commentaries of Nimbarkacharya on Vedanta Sutra, such and such, and so on. So we cannot avoid all these things. So then what is the meaning of jump over? Jump over means you don't follow the Parampara system. If you don't follow the Parampara system, you think that you understand the Shastra better than the Parampara Acharyas, that is jumping over the Parampara. So you cannot jump over the Parampara to understand Shastra, but you cannot avoid the Shastra. You can avoid the Shastra because then you come with all these crazy ideas. If there are 3 dots on a wall and all the 3 are perpendicular, they're placed one below the other and below the other. You can only draw a single straight line that passes through all 3 of them through one angle. But instead of that, imagine you had a single dot. You can put a straight line through any angle. But if you have 3 and all 3 are coming in the same way, you can draw a single straight line, only one particular straight line through only one particular angle. So if you look at Prabhupada's teachings on Parampara, he repeatedly talks. The Parampara should continue. Repeatedly he's saying before July 9, after July 9. Look at the predecessor Acharyas. Look at Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He clearly says that this is a problem. You cannot jump over you cannot say your Parama Guru to be your Guru. In Chaitanya Bhagavat commentary, he has explicitly mentioned that. So like that, if you carefully examine, you'll find that no, we need to understand the Acharya's teachings through the predecessor Acharya teachings and Shastra. And you look at Shastra, where in Shastra is it there? Where in Shastra is it there? Kevala Advaitins, Mayavadis, they say that from the ultimate Paramartha perspective, Shastra is Mithya, the Guru Parampara is Mithya, the Guru is Mithya, the knowledge that is blessed by the Guru, that is also mithya. From mithya itself, you get out of mithyatva. This is standard Shankarite ideology. But even they say you require a Guru in the anti-Ritvikist sense, even though everything is mithya. So if such a concept they have, then obviously all the Vaishnava Paramparas will accept that you require this. So I would say that if you look at the Shastras, things are extremely clear about this.
So I would like to read this. You mentioned one of the statements Prabhupada said about that we should read the Acharyas. So I want to read this direct statement from Bhagavatam. This is from first canto, first chapter, first shloka, Prabhupada's commentary. He says, quote, within the past 500 years, many erudite scholars and acharyas like Jiva Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Vallabhacharya, and many other distinguished scholars, even after the time of Lord Chaitanya, made elaborate commentaries on the Bhagavatam. And the serious student would do well to attempt to go through them to better relish the transcendental messages. One point I myself make personally in this is that the consulting the other Shastras is not jumping over. Consulting the other Shastras is actually for clarifying our own understanding, for removing doubts and misconceptions. That's not jumping over. In fact, the whole concept of law, the Vedic term for law is vyavahara, and the grammarian Katyayana Muni, he gives this explanation for the word vyavahara. So it's composed of, you have two upasargas with hara. So first is vi, that's the first upasarga, that means vibhina. That's how he interprets it. So vi means vibhina, which means many. The second, ava, which means down or doubt. And then hara, like hari, you take away. So hara takes away. So therefore, literally law or vyavahara means that which dispels or takes away many doubts. So this is what we're really trying to do here by consulting the Shastras and the Acharyas and trying to understand these all in a unified way, the Aikya principle according to Sadhu Shastra Guru Vakya Chittite Kariya Aikya. So in this regard, Prabhu, I have one last question before we move on to some other important information from Rama Prameya Prabhu and Sridhar Srinivas Prabhu. If there is a difference between the Shastra and Prabhupada, or between the Shastra and any other Acharya like Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, or so on, how should we resolve that difference?
See, first of all, we should consider what the Shastra says and how the Acharya has explained it. If you have a consolidated understanding of an Acharya's statement, and you have a consolidated understanding of the Shastric statement on this, then you'll very easily see the harmony. Just like there is for understanding Shastra Mimamsa, there is a principle that, like for instance, Brahman being the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of the universe, or the Srishti Prakara, the method of creation. Various details are found in various branches of the Shruti. So the Vedantas, what is their principle? They consolidate all of this. Because that is, you need to have a consolidated understanding of any given topic. So the same principle has to be applied to an Acharya also. Yasya deve para bhakti, yatha deve tatha guru. Shastra being the eternal message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And since you apply the principle of consolidation with Veda, similarly, you need to do that with the Acharya. So when you do that with the Acharya, then the harmony becomes very clear and evident and glaring, in fact. Very, very clear. That is why even with Prabhupada, if you see it, it's clear. With Shastra, you see it, it's clear. And when you see Prabhupada and the previous Acharya in Shastra, it's even more clear. Very, very clear.
So
what a bona fide Acharya will never speak against Shastra. Prabhupada repeatedly says this. A bona fide Acharya will never speak anything against the parampara of liberated Acharyas, who will never speak anything against Shastra. That is the sadhutva of a sadhu. That is the acharyatva of an acharya. He is, after all, a Shastra acharya. Even when they call for debate, don't they say, why don't you come for a Shastra artha vichar? Do they say, come for a Sadhu artha vichar or a Guru artha vichar? They don't say these things. Shastra artha vichar. So there cannot be a contradiction. If there's a contradiction, it is first of all wrong. By saying that Prabhupada is a bona fide acharya, Vedic acharya, Shastric acharya, it is obviously axiomatically accepted that Prabhupada's teachings are matching with Shastra. If you don't understand it, it means you haven't studied Shastra.
Okay. So then if there is a seeming conflict, because, and I want to frame this as a doubt, a samshaya, just like you see, like, you know, like if you see like an object at a distance, it looks like it could be a pillar, but it could look like, but it could be a man too, but it can't be both a pillar and a man. In other words, you're having two incompatible cognitions in the same object, and that's formally called a doubt or a samshaya. So in the case of a Shastra, you know, in the case of a Shastra or an Acharya, is there some order? Like Prabhupada says, Shastra is the center for all. So what does that practically mean?
It means that when you try to understand the Acharya's teachings, you should never try to understand the Acharya's teachings by disregarding Shastra. One should never do that. Just like I gave the example of the three dots. The last dot being Guru, you can draw any number of lines. But if you put the previous Acharya's dot and Shastra dot, there's only one line it will go. So the moment you ignore Shastra, you're inviting hell. You can interpret anything out of anyone.
Okay.
So wherever, because Shastra is the highest authority and the original authority. That does not mean we are not minimizing Prabhupada by saying that. Because in the Parampara system, Shastra is highest authority, but Nirnaya. The Purvacharyas are Nirnayakas. And the later liberated Acharyas are Nirnayaka of the earlier liberated Acharyas. One will not experience the harmony. So many years I myself have studied and examined with an open mind. I could not discover disharmony. There may be many things which we don't know from the scriptures or from the previous Acharyas or from Shastra. Also, there are many things we need to consider. Like for instance, take an Acharya like Vishwanath Chakravarti. Vishwanath Chakravarti has written commentary on Bhagavad Gita. But he has also written so many commentaries on other places and independent books also. And then take another Acharya like Baladev Vidyabhushana. Baladev Vidyabhushana comes immediately after Vishwanath Chakravarti. He also writes different books. Now, some point that Vishwanath Chakravarti makes his commentary to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, you find it in Baladev Vidyabhushan's Siddhanta Ratna, which is a supplement to Govinda Bhashya. So these liberated Acharyas also completely repackaged their teachings. You cannot say, look at this particular Gita Sutta, look at how Vishwanath Chakravarti is commenting here, look at Baladev Vidyabhushan is saying something different. It's not like that. That particular point of Vishwanath Chakravarti may be brought out somewhere else by Baladev. So the same point you will find it, but you need to do the hard work of thoroughly studying Vishwanath Chakravarti first and thoroughly studying Baladev Vidyabhushana also. Only then you can connect dots. Okay, see here saying this, saying this. It's the same point.
So it's
therefore,
really...
I must with a number of devotees I have discussed this, and they said, no, but this is all too complicated, too difficult. Let me just go with only Prabhupada, the policy of only Prabhupada. But only Prabhupada means you can interpret so many things out of Prabhupada.
This is the point. This is the point. If you go with Prabhupada, now interesting thing, Thomas Hopkins, Dr. Thomas Hopkins, who's no longer with us. He's known the devotees from the beginning, but he wrote an essay called ISKCON Search for Self-Identity, in which he noted this point, that Prabhupada has said so many things about so many topics that have been carefully recorded that you could practically find a statement from Prabhupada to justify almost anything. And so this is exactly your point about the three dots, that you can do it. And so therefore, when people have these discussions on the internet that Prabhupada said this and I'm going with it, Prabhupada said that, and it's not just limited to the issue, Ritviks, it's so many issues. You get what they call more heat, politely call more heat than light. In other words, you just don't get really kind of like, you don't get to this point of dispelling doubts. You know, that's the thing. So last thing I want to say, and I want to involve Rama Prameya Prabhu next on this, is the example in Prabhupada's life. When he was also a devotee, householder devotee in the Gaudiya Math, he went to see his Guru Maharaj, one time. And when he saw that, he was actually face to face with a deadly snake. The snake was going to go it, and he didn't know what, and he had some doubt or uncertainty. Should I kill this snake because the Shastras say to be kind to all living entities, or should I protect myself? So Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur came out on the balcony. He saw the situation. He said, kill the snake. So Prabhupada himself mentions how he had this doubt for many years. And then finally, when he read in the Bhagavatam in relation to the story of Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad Maharaj, that even a saintly person rejoices when an envious creature like a snake is killed, then he said, yes, my Guru Maharaj, he was totally in line with the Shastra. Rama Prameya Prabhu, could you perhaps talk a little bit more about this in relation to further objections to this, and why those objections are not really, just what is the problem with those objections, and what's the actual understanding?
So, in this regard, there is a serious question. You see, Shastras are important, you said. But Prabhupada, he is the world Acharya. And in his physical presence, he changed so many things. For example, he is giving second initiation to women, and he has allowed brahmacharinis to stay in the ashram. And what to speak of that? Earlier 64 rounds were required. Prabhupada brought it to 16 rounds. So Prabhupada is a very powerful area. Are you saying that Prabhupada can't make these changes in Shastra? He has demonstrated that in his life. So why could he bring Ritvik Initiations post his departure?
That's very good. Prabhupada, his name is Bhaktivedanta. So if we're saying that Prabhupada is making things up, we're making Prabhupada out as an upstart, that he's actually he's even going against his own namesake. Bhakti according to Vedanta, not bhakti any which way and wherever. So this finally brings us to the heart of today's discussion, is that we're going to talk about the Ritvik system specifically, but we really needed to talk about this concept of the Shastras, the center of the Shastras. Anything bona fide needs to have the sanction of Shastra. So specifically, what Srila Srinivas Prabhu, what you were telling me beforehand, is you have a lot of evidence from the Pancharatrika Shastras that demonstrates that Prabhupada's system of Ritvik initiations within his presence is actually according to our Pancharatrika tradition. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
So first thing is, Prabhupada said clearly that we are Pancharatrika, as Vidwan Gaurang Prabhu pointed out, the three-track system. And in that three-track system, Prabhupada has said several times, we are following Pancharatrika Vidhi as well as Bhagavata Vidhi. So the onus is on us to study the Pancharatrika scriptures. So that's in my study that I found that Prabhupada's actions, specifically Rama Prameya Prabhu was putting a Purva Paksha position. Actually, Ritvikism he did, and is it unprecedented? The question I would raise, no. This was always a common in the Vedic scripture, Vedic culture, employing a Ritvik. So I'm going to give an example directly from the Padma Samhita, one of the famous Pancharatrika scriptures, followed by, I think this is followed by a very, Sri Rangam temple and many other temples. That verse is, Kutascha asamartho va mrito va deshikottamah sesham samapayedanyah putro va tad anugnaya shishyo va yadi va brata ritvika guna vattarah. The meaning of this is, if the foremost spiritual teacher is unable to continue the proceedings or has passed away for some reason, then another qualified person should complete the remaining duties. This could be his son, disciple, a god brother, or an officiating priest, provided, this is the most important part, they have the necessary qualifications and act with his permission. So this word Ritvik, or sometimes they will be using the word mantravit, as was with the other Pancharatrika scriptures like Ishvara Samhita that I can quote, but I don't want to go too much into that now. But the point to understand here is there can be, the Shastra recognizes asamartha. That means the spiritual master may not be able to be present at every initiation ceremony, or he could have started out something and he didn't finish it. For example, the Pancharatrika involves 5 samskaras. Somebody could have gotten only the first 3 part, the Hare Krishna mantra, the initiation, and they could get in those kind of situations when the spiritual master is no longer with us. Then another representative who has heard and who has the permission of the Acharya can officiate, and that way it's very clear. But what we cannot do is insert somebody, a new person who has not had any connection directly with Prabhupada, and initiate them, or the officiating priest has no connection, is not appointed by Prabhupada.
What if, okay, so now the Ritviks say that, but Prabhupada has already given that sanction. He has this letter, the July 9th letter, and he has the word henceforth, means from that time forward. How do we know? That seems to be evidence that Srila Prabhupada has indeed given that sanction, and that people will continue to initiate people after Prabhupada's departure, because he hasn't said that, he will not continue.
That's an excellent question. And the point here is Vidwan Gaurang Prabhu addressed this in his talk before, that if you take 2 statements, let's take the word henceforward. The henceforward can be interpreted as henceforward into eternity, or henceforward till the Acharya's time. That's the question is, there are 2 interpretations. How do we resolve which one is correct? So we bring in Purvacharya, we bring in, that's where you can have, if you ask this question and you pick only henceforward word from July 9th letter, that is like a single dot that Vidwan Gaurang Prabhu said, any interpretation can go through that dot. But if you align that dot with the Purvacharya, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and align that dot with this verse from Padma Samhita that I just pointed out, then we can understand, and also align with another Jiva Satkriya Saradipika statement from Gopala Bhatta Goswami that says what to do tadabhave. I'm just saying, when we study with all these things, we find that henceforward is really not sanctioned to be considered as into eternity. That was something that Prabhupada, that's what the Shastra is saying. Kutaschid asamartho. So Prabhupada had an inconvenience. He was not able to initiate. He was ill. And in another conversation, we can see, I'm not going to go over this detail, but I'm just saying, demonstrating that point, that Vidwan Gaurang Prabhu pointed out, there has to be 3 dots, and the angle of vision, explanation should go through all 3 dots. We just cannot determine what is heavier, what is authentic, just by 2 statements of Prabhupada or 3 statements of Prabhupada. That's something that anybody else can, elucidate a little more.
Rama Prameya, could you comment further on this, especially in the tradition of Madhvacharya?
Prabhu, there are some things that still need to be clarified. For example, you said, okay, it's also said that the spiritual master lives forever through his divine instructions and the follower lives with him. So are you saying that Prabhupada is no more there? He is there through his instructions, he is there through his books, and we have his recording tapes. We have so much connection with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's deity definitely is not different from Prabhupada. So under those circumstances, we definitely do have a connection with Prabhupada. So under those circumstances, will these verses become valid? That when the Acharya is not there, we have to connect the next Acharya?
Yeah, so it seems to be that there is also a question of a difference between Shiksha and Diksha, okay? Because even in, in these sampradayas, Madhvacharya and Ramanujacharya and so forth, these are Adi Gurus, actually. They're the heads of their respective acharyas, including ours. That Shiksha, that Diksha ceremony is a one-time but a very necessary thing, like getting a passport. So, Jiva Goswami, in commenting on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Rupa Goswami. So, Guru Parashraya Tasmat Diksha, Krishna Diksha.
Krishna Dikshadi.
Yeah, Krishna Diksha Shikshanam. So, Jiva Goswami says that this Krishna Diksha Shikshanam actually means Diksha Purvaka Shikshanam, that it is Shiksha preceded by Diksha. And the philosophy is that to serve Krishna, first you have to understand that you are a servant of Krishna, an eternal servant of Krishna, which is exactly what the mantra Diksha does. It reestablishes your relationship, the sambandha with the Krishna. So unless you have the sambandha first, how can you advance in abhideya? How can you advance in that? So therefore, Diksha Purvaka Shikshanam, according to Jiva Goswami. First, you have to have that. So this is an example of the dots, Vidvan Gauranga Prabhu's very nice dots analogy. So here's the relationship between the Shiksha and the Diksha right there, that unless to make advancement in the Shiksha, you have to get the Diksha. And before that, everybody is just actually a Vartma Pradarshika guru for you. They're giving you Shiksha. But until you come to that point of the bhajana kriya, of actually taking the initiation, you're not going to make further advancement past that stage.
Objection that Rama Paramaya Prabhu has very wisely brought out. This is a misapplication of a originally proper set of principles. It is a fact that Prabhupada is always present in sound. And Prabhupada also pointed out it is a fact that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is always present in sound. It is also a fact that Gaurakishore Das Babaji Maharaj is always present in sound. It is also a fact that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is always present in sound. All the Acharyas are present in sound, all the way up to Rupa Goswami. But there's a particular way of how you engage in mantra diksha. Just like I'll give an analogy, like in deity worship. There are several rules that in front of the deity you cannot offer obeisance. In front of the Supreme Lord you cannot offer obeisance. If you look at the scripture, it will explicitly say, in front of Hari you cannot offer obeisance. This is how it will say, in front of Keshava you cannot do this. It will not always say, in front of the Pratima of Lord Keshava you cannot do it. It will simply say, in front of Keshava you cannot do it. In front of Govinda you cannot do this. Like this, so many statements are there. Now, suppose I were to argue, Lord Govinda is all pervasive. Lord Keshava is all pervasive. So, since he is all pervasive, I will not offer obeisances anywhere. Because he is all pervasive. Because Shastra says in front of Lord Hari, will not offer obeisances. This is a misapplication of a principle. Lord Hari, in the form of the deity, is present inside the Garbhagriha. In the Garbhagriha, you cannot offer Dandavan Nati. That is the meaning. But if you misapply it, you are connecting two different ideas from bona fide scriptures, but in a non-bona fide manner. So that Prabhupada is present, we know it. That Prabhupada can do all kinds of extraordinary things, that also we know. That Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur can do extraordinary things, that also we know. That Rupa Goswami can do extraordinary things, that also we know. But in Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, you don't start depending on the extraordinary activities of the liberated Acharyas. You do what you're supposed to do, the way non-devotees are supposed to do. So for that, there is, just as there is a consideration that this rule does not apply to outside Garbhagriha, even though Lord Govinda is present. But this rule, for the sake of that rule, it is considered that Lord Govinda's presence here refers to only the deity form of Lord Govinda inside the Garbhagriha. So like that, when we say you cannot take ceremonial mantra diksha from Prabhupada now, we are not denying what Prabhupada can do and all that. For the purpose of applying the rules of Pancharatrika Vidhi, you have to consider that Prabhupada is aprakata, and you have to bring in the scriptural rule that says that you can only do certain things through Prakata Vaishnavas, through Prakata Acharyas. So you need to put them together in the right manner also. And we see this is how the Acharyas have always done it. Rama Pramaya Prabhu and myself, we have been studying how Madhvacharya explains the this whole thing about guru-disciple relationships. And one thing we discovered, that Madhvacharya is, practically speaking, the only major Acharya who has extensively written how to deal with sadhaka gurus. Because his teachings, if you also study Baladev Vidyabhushan's teachings, I myself have discovered there are the Swanishta Vaishnavas who attain the abode of the Lord over several lifetimes. Then there are Paranishtita Vaishnavas who attain the Lord's abode after one lifetime. And there are Nirapeksha Vaishnavas, Raga Marga, who attain Krishna Prema much before. Now, Madhvacharya's teachings, in my own studies, directly corresponds with this Swanishta Marga. And in this Marga, Lord Brahma is accepted as the ultimate authority, ultimate guru. And Madhvacharya clearly says that Lord Brahma is the greatest Vaishnava in the universe. So, and all gurus below Brahma are sadhakas. And he specifies, what do you do when you have a sadhaka guru? There are so many things in Anuvyakhyana, third adhyaya, third pada. He says that if you have a sadhaka guru, a guru knows everything. He knows Nirnaya Shastra, Nirnaya Shastra. He knows Shruti itself. Then he knows Vedanta Sutra. He knows other scriptures which ascertain it. Then that is the greatest guru. This is like Lord Brahma. Some exalted, like Madhvacharya himself. Some exalted. If you don't have him, then what to do? Then he specifies what to do. Then if you don't have that, what to do? If you don't have what to do? If you don't have what to do? So he gives various levels. Now suppose the Ritvik concept were to be a bona fide Vedic scripture, obviously you would have said, I am always there. Brahma is always there. Why do you need a lower guru? There's no question of a lower guru. You all have the highest guru. You have access to the highest guru instantly. In the Ramanuja tradition also, there is a verse by Vedanta Deshika that specifies all the lakshanas of a bona fide guru. There are also another verse with all the lakshanas of a bona fide shishya. And it is commonly stated in the Sri Vaishnava line by the gurus themselves that Ramanujacharya had all the lakshanas. Not that we have all the lakshanas. So they also recognize a taratamya amongst gurus. And they also recognize a adara or a puja taratamya, a gradation in respect, worship, honor. So these things are understood. If ISKCON is confused about these things, you just have to patiently study these things. That's all you need to do. Why do we need to come up with something which is uniformly rejected? And we are living inside our own bubble and we create our own something,
This right there is key. The difference between something being bona fide and not. What is bona fide ultimately comes from an aparushaya source. Is that not correct? It's an aparushaya source, which is why we have to be able to say what is the Shastra. And if we just go with Prabhupada or another Acharya or somebody like that, then we have the problem that we can still draw a line through everything. And again, this is not, we're not fact checking Prabhupada, we're fact checking our own selves. This is why we need it. It's for our own selves. So I would like to just ask a follow-up question. You talked about the Swanishta, or is it Swanishtita? What is the correct term? The
Nirapekshas.
Swanishta.
It's a gradual track. Swanishta.
Yeah. Swanishta, the gradual track. So what you're saying is that the Swanishta Marg or the Swanishta track is what we are actually on, basically.
No, well, it is always expected that we go to the fastest track. We fully surrender absolutely to the Lord. That is what is ideal in Najanam Nasundarim. The third track, the track actually that Lord Chaitanya is promoting, is the one where you have no desire for kama, artha, dharma, moksha. You only desire Krishna's happiness. But the second track, you can have.
So are you saying that generally that we're not really fit, or we're just falling short of that third track of Najanam, Nasundaram, but we really have all these, we still have.
We have to prepare ourselves. Until we prepare ourselves, then there is a Parinishthita track, there is a Swanishta track. Bhaktivinoda himself, he says, he recommends, first become Swanishta, then become Parinishthita, then become Nirapeksha.
Yeah.
I will leave it up to you. I will not say all.
Okay. I would just like just to finish up here with Sridhar Srinivas Prabhu and Basu Ghosh Prabhu, But Sridhar Srinivas Prabhu, could you please talk, a little bit more about the about Prabhupada's Ritvik system while he was present?
Yeah, definitely. When he was present, he was, even before 1977. We have several instances. I recommend everybody watch this Jai Advaita Maharaj video. That was long back. There was a very nice, a very sattvic debate that happened in San Diego. We could put that description in the description. We should put that video link. And very clearly we see Prabhupada employed a competent so-called Ritvik, Mantravit, to execute these Diksha. And when he was not there. So that is sanctioned in Shastra. We find another statement from Shastra that says, right in the Pancha Samskara Vidhi, Acharya Swayam Adaya Niyukto Vata Mantravit. So there are so many Shastras repeatedly calling for Acharya, either he does this on his own or he can employ a Mantravit to do this. So
What is that?
that is very much valid.
What does that mantra mean? Can you translate that
Mantra, yeah, that's the spiritual master himself performs the ceremony. Acharya Swayam Adaya. Either he can do it himself or Niyukto Va Ata Mantravit. He can use another Ritvik assistant to perform the ceremony. This is very much same thing that comes in the Padma Samhita that I said before, that with Anujñata, he should do this ceremony, that he can continue. But that doesn't mean that we imagine. So you asked a question some time back. Prabhupada had assigned these 11 Acharyas. Yes, those 11 Acharyas are allowed to perform when Prabhupada was there. Even for the sake, I'm not saying it is valid, even if for the weirdest of the weirdest reasons, if that was okay, it's only those 11 who can perform this. I cannot insert myself into that list and claim I am a Ritvik. Or I cannot screw up another understanding that find some will somewhere and I insert myself. Oh, I am a Ritvik of Prabhupada. These are all, first of all, anyway, I wanted to address one point that Rama Prameya Prabhu asked. This concept of living Guru, that Prabhupada is living all these things. Who are we to say this when our own previous Acharyas, in this Padma Samhita verse, you see the word asamartho or mrito. Do you think these Padma Acharyas, they don't know that Prabhupada or any spiritual master is living forever? They shouldn't use the word mrito. They have used the word mritaha. I'm saying we should not concoct. Or even Gopala Bhatta Goswami uses the word tad abhave.
Yeah, I think
we
that
know more than these Acharyas.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point there. That that if the guru is not present, tad abhave, then from his wife he can take. If the wife is not there, then his son can give that initiation. And if the son is not there, then the guru's godbrothers can give that initiation. And if they're not there, then people who are still in the same disciplic succession can still give that, provided he already had that initiation in the first place.
Yes, and you see that statement of Gopala Bhatta Goswami is matching with Padma Samhita, which is a Shastra. Now this is the way we connect the dots in a perpendicular angle. So if we see Prabhupada books, the other day I was discussing with my sister on this, and she was saying the same thing. She doesn't know much detail, but she says, I find Prabhupada books is repeatedly calling for alignment of Guru Vakya, Sadhu Vakya, and Shastra Vakya.
This is very important. Where did the tradition in ISKCON for reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam shlokas in the morning come from? That came from Prabhupada, right? Isn't that right, Basagosh Prabhu?
Yes.
Prabhupada started these traditions. He's the one that had people learning shlokas. You were there in those days. Well, why didn't Prabhupada say, you just repeat me? Why did he say that you repeat the shlokas, even though nobody knew Sanskrit?
There would be a logic that why should anybody give a Bhagavatam class? Just listen to Prabhupada's tapes. similar logic, right? If Prabhupada was everything, I think Vidwan Gauranga Prabhu pointed out in our, not today's discussion, Ritvikists are guru, guru, guru. You know, I was in Amritsar some years ago, and I was walking in the market, and I heard a tape, guru, 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 guru. You know, there's a madness about the guru, but Prabhupada's teachings were guru, sadhu, and shastra. So, and you know, the standard for Sanskrit learning, there are a number of Sanskrit universities that the government in India has set up. Then there's the traditional system of learning. And it's all based on study of Shastras. It's not based on, these are concocted ideas that, you know,
Yes,
Gita wasn't
that's
spoken
the
by, or this sadhu was an incarnation of God. Actually, that verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita that I quoted earlier has to do with, in the purport, Prabhupada talks about how many incarnations are being concocted by rascals, he says. And then he said, we should know who's an incarnation from Shastras. So people make up so many things. And this Ritvikist, if you want to call it Ritvikism, that Prabhupada is the only guru who can give initiation, is another concoction. And it's bogus, it's nonsense. But, you know, their followers are going to continue. They don't, this simple logic that we've been presenting, they won't accept it. Over.
I have one point.
Go ahead, Vidwan.
Sridhar Srinivas Prabhu pointed out scriptural details regarding ritviks, pre-samadhi ritviks, which is the only bona fide Vedic usage of ritviks. Okay, and we also notice Ambarish Maharaj, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Bhagavatam commentary on 9th canto, he points out Ambarish Maharaj, since he was exclusively engaged in Navavidha Bhakti, how did he asked the question, how did he manage a kingdom? He managed a kingdom through competent representatives. So having pre-samadhi representatives is perfectly normal in Vedic civilization. So if you can rule a whole kingdom, why can't you just conduct an initiation ceremony with all of its details through that? What exactly could be wrong with that? Even though Prabhupada gave mantra through magnetic tape and so on, the basic mutual ownership of each other as the Guru and Shishya, the Gurutva Swikriti and the Shishyatva Swikriti, that was there. Each accepted each other. They had a mechanism.
Was present. And Prabhupada was present.
He could do mutual, that Paraspar Pariksha, it is called.
Yes.
The Guru and Shishya test each other according to Shastra, no?
Yes.
And Prabhupada himself, if you see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave an outline of what should be covered in Haribhakti Vilas.
Yes.
Chaitanya Charitamrita. And when it comes to that Guru Shishya Pariksha, mutual testing of each other, that's where Prabhupada starts talking about, in relation to that only Prabhupada is talking about how in ISKCON there is a recommendation letter from some temple president who represents Prabhupada. Because again, that's through Pratinidhi. Because you can test or you can have a living representative test on your behalf. So Prabhupada extensively used Pratinidhis, and there's absolutely nothing wrong in Vedic civilization. It's completely normal.
What is wrong is that they're trying to screw out their own interpretation that it can be done even after Prabhupada has left our manifest presence. This is wrong.
So is this question that Prabhupada physically gave initiations by right? Prabhupada gave initiations, allow somebody to do yajnas, that is also right. Prabhupada sent allowed the local representative to also right. Eventually, he deputed some people as Ritviks who will give the mantra, will do the yajna, everything they do, that's also right. But once Prabhupada leaves the planet, the autonomous, that is a concocted thing. That is not right. Is that the correct conclusion we can draw?
Yes.
I think so.
I think we're about out of time here, but I just want to conclude this. I want to, first of all, I want to thank everybody who's on this podcast. I want to thank Shriman Basu Ghosh Prabhu, Vidvan Guranga Prabhu, Sridhar Srinivas Prabhu, and Rama Pramaya Prabhu for helping us. And just very quickly, I want to just summarize, some of the main points here. The first point is that the Pancharatrika Shastras, actually whatever Prabhupada did when he instituted the Ritvik Initiations in his presence, this was actually according to Shastra. Actually what he did, the Padma Samhita, Ishvara Samhita, Narada Pancharatra, and so forth, all of these Shastras say that an Acharya can appoint someone to perform, one or more or many ceremonies actually on his behalf. But it's always, it's always on his behalf. So what Prabhupada did was actually in accordance with the Shastras. First thing, very nice example was also given here that just like in the Satkriya Sara Deepika, that for atonement for somebody who's broken his vows, he can go to Guru's wife, Guru's if she's not available, Guru's son, if he's not available, Guru's godbrothers, and so forth. But he cannot, no one can do that unless he's actually taken initiation from that Acharya. You can't do this posthumously. So this is actually what sanctioned Shastra looks like, because otherwise, how do we know? Just like there's some say that, some people, they've taken reinitiation from Srila Prabhupada as a Ritvik. Well, how do you know that you can take Ritvik initiation that way from a picture of Prabhupada or however you've done it in a certain way, unless that's in the Shastra? Because this is just, you have no way of knowing it beyond your sense perception, your speculation. So if you say it and you don't have the sanction of the Shastra, then that's you saying it, that's Paurushaya, that's subject to the 4 defects of the conditioned soul. So therefore, we cannot accept that. It has to be. Now that you're doing Ritvik ceremonies, well, where's the description for the Ritvik ceremonies? It's not in the Shastra. So Vidvan Guranga Prabhu's point about the Shastra being absolutely necessary, the 3 points versus the 1 point. You have 1 point, you could draw many conclusions through that 1 point or that 1 word or that 1 concept. So in addition to Prabhupada, we need also to understand the Shastra and the previous Acharyas. Then it's like the 3 tracks that Prabhupada gave this example. You have a train on the 3 tracks, then it goes very smoothly. But if it's 1 track, then it wobbles here and there. So therefore, the whole point is, to consulting the Shastras and the previous Acharyas is not jumping over the Acharya. It is actually constraining our understanding to a harmonious understanding based on all those 3 sources. We can't do it. It's like when Prabhupada was having his debate with Professor Stahl on, chanting Hare Krishna. He said the message of the Vedas is one, but the unauthorized interpretations, but the interpretations of various unauthorized sampradayas give a rupturous appearance to the Shastras. So this is our whole point, is that this unity of message with the Shastras, with the previous Acharyas and with Guru, that must be there. That's the real test here. So Vidvan Guranga Prabhu also brought up the issue that really, what we're dealing with here in our own society, ISKCON, is we're dealing with sadhaka gurus, not siddha gurus, those who have actually come to the perfectional stage of bhava and prema. We're still sadhakas, and because we're sadhakas, sometimes gurus still fall down, actually. Yes, they do fall down. Otherwise, why would the Shastras even deal with the question of gurus falling down? Guru aptavyaliptasya karyakaryam ajanataha utpata pratipanasya parityago vidiyate. Prabhupada even himself quotes that shloka in Bhagavatam 8, chapter 20, text 1, in the context of Bali going against its guru. So, so this is an example of a rupture's appearance. If you're only going to focus on that one word, that only liberated persons who could never fall down can be guru, well, then you just invalidated all these other instructions in the Shastras. You've actually invalidated Shastra itself, and you've invalidated yourself, actually. So, Prabhupada, he taught his disciples to recite Shastra from the very beginning. That's important. Basa Ghosh Prabhu's point that Prabhupada didn't want this class just to be understood only for his disciples, acceptable. He wanted everybody to accept it outside of him. And so, he's just he's a representative of Shastra. But to be acceptable to everybody, especially those who are followers of Sanatana Dharma, everybody accepts Shastra. Shastra is literally the center for all. And just think about it otherwise. If you only go with Prabhupada, then how could you actually ever prove that Prabhupada was a bona fide Acharya to somebody who's not a member of our group? You couldn't do it. So finally, as we promised in the beginning, Pancharatrika Shastras like the Padma Samhita, Ishvara Samhita, Narada Pancharatrika, and so forth, they are unanimous in their injunctions that an Acharya can appoint persons to perform the initiations on his behalf. There's no question about that.
During his physical presence.
During his physical presence. Just one last question that might come up: how do we know that this doesn't apply after his physical presence? Well, just look at Bhagavad Gita. The whole Vedic, all the examples, you'll find throughout Vedic literature, from Vedas, Smritis, Puranas, and so forth. They're living acharyas, from one living person to another. Evam parampara praptam.
Yes.
So it is from saintly king to saintly king. It's one. Sakalena hamata yogo nashta. So there's a break here. So the break is when there's, when that message is either corrupted or it's just not passed on for somebody, but it has to be passed on, like that. So finally, Jiva Goswami, he says, Krishna Dikshari Shikshanam means Diksha Purvaka Shikshanam. That means Shiksha followed by Diksha, Shiksha that comes after Diksha. You can't get the Shiksha unless you first have the Diksha. It's also like Upanayana, that the Guru will not teach you Vedas until you've had Upanayana. Similarly, you cannot advance in Abhideya unless first you have Sambandha. And that's what the Diksha ceremony, it establishes that relationship between reestablishes that relationship between the servitor and the Lord. So, so that concludes our podcast for today. And I would like to thank all the listeners for hearing all these great souls. And we'll be talking more about this in future podcasts. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Namo Namah.